Welcome to Hear Here, the podcast where you get a VIP behind-the-scenes look at the broad collective of music venues and festivals that make Buffalo the music destination it is. I'm your host, Bentley. The Americana music genre is a big tent that includes the styles of folk, country, bluegrass, blues, and gospel. It's about leaning on chords and choruses to bring fans together as family. Americana can't fake this facet of its art form, and neither can the venues who host its artists. In this episode of Hear Here, we'll talk about how a neighborhood tavern in Black Rock became a destination venue for not only Americana fans, but for a variety of music fans and traveling musicians alike. First up, we'll talk to a guy who literally grew up here, Sportsmen's co-owner Jason Hall. Jay, thank you for spending time with us today. I know you're busy. You've got shows every day of the week here, something going on at all times. I'm surprised we caught you.
No, thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. And sometimes it's just, you got to squeeze stuff in.
Tell me about Sportsmen's Tavern. What type of place is it for musicians? What type of place is it for the audience?
I think what makes Sportsmen special is it's sort of built and designed by a musician. My father played since he was a very young boy, performed live. And I think he wanted to build a place that was music forward and homey, and where both musicians were treated with respect. And it's sort of, after 40 years, and actually even prior to that, knowing the two previous owners of Sportsmen's before it was all this, it's like you're in our living room. Mm-hmm. It's home to us. It's our home, and you get to invite, some of the coolest musicians in town and sometimes from all over the world and invite people that appreciate what those guys do. And, it's very relaxed. Yeah. It's a very relaxed space for live music and for people that enjoy live music.
So take us back 40 years ago. You said there's been a few owners because it's been around for 100 years. Mm-hmm. How did your family get involved?
So I think my mom and dad, so we're Black Rockers. We've lived in this neighborhood most of our lives. And my parents met around the corner from here when they were kids. And my grandparents owned property on this block. And my dad was like a neighborhood tavern. And I think my dad managed the place with for a couple of years while my dad was playing 7 nights a week and working in a steel plant. And, the owners that we bought it from only owned it for 2 years. But it was a very, very different place in 1985. It was very dark, and it was the space was not laid out like this at all. It was very different. Pool tables and cigarette machines and tables, little tables with painted checkerboards and chess boards on them and backgammon boards, and it was a different kind of place. I think Sportsmen's comes from. It's funny when people call or when people ask about Sportsmen's, and they sometimes out of folks. People will call the number randomly thinking it's a place where they can watch an out-of-town football game. And I say Sportsmen's means something different in every town in the world except for this one. Yeah. It has a completely different meaning. And so I think it had a sportsman's sort of feel where it was like a sportsman's club back like hunting and fishing. Kind of, mm-hmm. I think that's where its roots were.
So that's where the name probably came
and
from.
we never changed it. We never changed the name. It's been Sportsmen's since as far back as we know, since the building was built, I believe, in 1890. Interestingly enough, when we opened the cave a few years ago in 19, we were trying to figure out how to name the cave. That thread still exists between my family with you didn't have to name Sportsmen's, and so when you're naming a business, that's sort of a reflection of what you do. It's not always easy to do. The cave is actually a nickname to Sportsmen's. It was a longtime friend of my family's and customer who was a big Sportsmen's supporter. His nickname for Sportsmen's was the Cave, so that's why the Cave is named what it is.
So the Cave is a family member venue. I want to say it's a sister or a brother venue or a venue to the Sportsmen.
Yep. Sister club. We have a few music nonprofits that are officed here. The Buffalo Music Hall of Fame is here. We have Sportsmen's Park, which is our outdoor space that's still growing. We have the Cave. There's a couple of recording studios besides the 2 indoor clubs. So we get busy. We keep busy and get bored really easy around here. So we're constantly trying to find new stuff to do.
Has live music always been a part of Sportsmen's since your family took it over?
To an extent. So back when it was a little neighborhood tavern and my dad took it over, he would put music in here on occasion. His band would play here on occasion. We started to do live music in the mid 90s, not full time, not to the schedule we have now. Maybe the early to mid 90s is when it started. And then we were probably 5 to 6 days a week up until 2004. And that we had already been bringing in national acts, and they were always free. We never charged. We didn't charge a cover. It's interestingly enough, we had Dave Alvin here on Friday night, this past Friday, and Dave Alvin in 2006 was our very first ticketed show. It was the very first time we had charged to get in. Wow. Prior to that, everything we did was free. Even the national touring acts, we just ate it. We just brought them in. They played regardless of what they cost. We just ate the money and had a cool night, a cool business day. And it's just kind of how we got started.
Yeah. I know that Sportsmen's is a champion for independent musicians and local musicians, but you've also had, as you mentioned, you've had some national musicians and artists here. What were some of those oh wow moments that you might have had with some of those musicians, or maybe people that...
There's a lot. I mean, there's so many moments where you just feel like that's the reason why you're doing what you're doing. Friday night was like that with Dave. The first time Dave Alvin was here, he's a personal hero with the Blasters, and a band that he had with his brother in the 80s, and I've listened to those guys most of my life. I remember one time, the old stage, we had Elliot Randall played here. Now, Elliot, Steely Dan guitar player, musical director of Saturday Night Live, and, maybe composed one of the great rock guitar in a song in rock and roll history with Reelin' in the Years with Steely Dan. And he played that here, and they did Reelin' in the Years here, and absolutely ripped the roof off the place. And I'm going, it sounded like the record. He played it like he said, and there's thousands of those moments, from local to regional to national to international artists. Every single night, you could probably find a moment for, that's special to that night. It's
interesting that you said it sounded just like the record, because one of the compliments that Sportsmen's gets is the sound here. You walk in and you feel like it's at home. There's pictures on the wall. It feels like a tavern, but it's also a performance space. It is a venue, and the sound here is amazing.
One of the prime examples is if you go to the Cave. Now, we've worked really hard to get the Cave to sound as good as it does. But it's a completely different room. It doesn't have a big ceiling. It has concrete walls. It has a concrete floor. It doesn't have a basement. There's not a lot of wood there. This room, we've been fortunate enough that it was built long ago, and Tony Caniglio, who was our head of production, designed this sound system for this room. And the room breathes, and there's lots of wood, and it's, when you get a lot of people in here, I tell people you don't hear the room. And a lot of people don't understand what that means, and maybe we get a little spoiled being in here all the time. And then when you walk into a space and that it's not because they're not trying, it's just the room isn't going to sound the same because of the way that it's made up. But you certainly don't hear the room here. You hear what we like to refer to as truth. What's coming off the stage and what's coming out of the speakers is truth. And we're very fortunate, but we've worked really hard at that.
It's important to you, right?
If you're a live music room and you're not focused on how good you sound, then you could be a bakery. Like that's what you're selling. You're selling the performance, you're selling the sound. It has to sound good, or what are you doing? So for us, it's always been the most important. So through each transition that the space, we've just expanded again. And I think the room actually sounds better now, which is even more remarkable. It's the most important thing.
So how much did your father's role in the local music scene? I mean, he was inducted into the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame that is housed here now, right?
Twice he's inducted.
Yeah. How much of a role did that take in recruiting local musicians, or your role as a venue here in Buffalo?
My dad's influence in the city, he's just, he's a great guy to be around. You know, people like hanging around with him. I watched him for 40 plus years of how he genuinely talks and makes people feel good. You know, he just has a natural ability to do that. And musically with his band over the years, he always, you know, again, sound was so important, how the band sounded, what guys were doing. It was so important to him. And I think he had a lot of respect amongst all the musicians of his generation. And so when we started to do music and, you know, and the Willie Shelkoffs of the world and the Billy McEwens in the area and, you know, all the guys that my dad crossed paths with locally, it was super easy.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to play Dwayne's place. We're going to go to Dwayne's. We're going to play, you know, that kind of thing. And then just, I think you're not paying attention to how it happens. It just happens. And I think because of the way that we did it, not really writing any formula down, I think just being honest and being transparent and being approachable to people and stuff like that, I think it just, your reputation grows into itself.
Yeah.
And but sure, my dad's music career in this town had a lot to do with that. We didn't have to start at zero.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it just shows that what is important to you, you are reflecting in your venue too.
Right.
Now, so there's obviously a great local scene here in Buffalo. What do you think makes Buffalo a music destination?
So I think because we have a variety of venues and organizations in Buffalo that should be able to get folks here, at least in the general area. It's a beautiful city on the lake. We have Niagara Falls. We have all these things that can get people into the city. I think along with everybody else, I think, you know, you have a responsibility to represent your city and to represent your community in a way that when you do get these people in town and they do come to your place, whether they're, you know, in from another country or in from, you know, as close as Rochester, you know, that they find you and you provide them with the experience that they go back and go, you know, if you go to Buffalo, you got to stop here.
Yeah.
You got to go there. We saw this great show at such and such. We had great food here. It's all the same. It's an experience that has to be shared. And so when you have those opportunities, when people come from out of town into your place, it's your responsibility to, at least if they're not going to visit Buffalo again, that they tell all their friends that when they do, that they have to experience what the city offers.
Yeah.
Besides, you know, the obvious stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of decisions that go into running a venue, and it's a family affair. So
there's no one way answer to anything that we do.
Yeah.
We just, you wake up and you deal with the day's business that day, and based on previous history, you do the best you can. And sometimes
you're doing a wonderful job. Just to
we try like hell
right now.
Well, there's a whole team of people here.
Yeah.
Like I get to sit here. You know, I get to sit here and talk, and sometimes I've sort of become the face of, or the spokesperson for the family. But, you know, my brothers, Jeff and James, and my son, Eric, and my mom and dad, my mom, Denise, you know, my nephew, Josh, and as I mentioned, Tony, and my whole staff, like this, there's a whole team of people that work effortlessly to, you know, to seem effortlessly, but they bust their ass to pull off what we do on a daily basis.
So that sounds like that's one of the parts of the enduring success of the Sportsmen's. You've made it through difficult times. You've made it through good times. And so what do you think is the formula, and what are the next steps for Sportsmen's to keep another 40 years going?
Well, I would have had more kids. I joke with my son, and I tell him, I said, you know, I have two brothers, you know, that I lean on, and, you know, you're an only child. And so far, I mean, I have one nephew, and then my one brother is still yet, you know, I would have had a football team, but you never know, you know, so we have to nurture new musicians and new music. That's another thing, you know, we have this, like right now, and I'm not knocking it because I book it too because it's successful. You know, the onslaught of the tribute era is certainly changing. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah.
You know, we book it because it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, when we learn to play an instrument, what do? we emulate our heroes, you know, it's like, you know, I want Jimmy Page, you know, the first time you put a Les Paul in your hand, you want to play Stairway, you know, it's like, it's what you do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we're at this kind of strange transition right now where, you know, musicians are making good money doing something, and that's important because it's keeping venues open on nights maybe they wouldn't be as successful, and it's keeping extra money in musicians' pockets, which is always good. But at the same time, we still have to nurture original music.
But you are working towards encouraging the next generation with your nonprofit. Can you talk a little bit about the nonprofit?
So my dad and some of our longtime supporters and business leaders in the area wanted to give back and use our branding to do so. So they came up with the Sportsmen's Americana Music Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And, you know, we just kind of started out as small, wanted to just give some scholarships and buy some instruments and sort of help the other music nonprofits in town, like Music is Art, Colored Musicians Club, the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. And it's sort of grown a little bit more than that, but I think it's important for two reasons. One, from a community perspective, it's important to support culturals, even if they're not your own, you know, like I think as a business, it's our responsibility to do that. And as a business in music, it's our responsibility to nurture new music.
Well, I'm grateful for your part in this music neighborhood in Buffalo and the music community in general. But I do think Sportsmen's is a national treasure. So
thank you.
Any night of the week. Now, Mondays, you said
Mondays.
Most Mondays would be the only night. But other than that, shows every day of the week.
Yeah. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we do lunch concerts at noon. They're free. Free of charge. You can come in and have a sandwich and listen to jazz. Or twice a month, there's a big band, 17-piece big band orchestra that plays every other Tuesday. There's bluegrass. There's traditional country. My dad still plays, so he's with the Twang Gang on Tuesday nights, and he does every other Thursday with his guys on lunch Thursday. So we do music during the day. There's Saturday matinees at 3. There's usually a Sunday matinee. There's 2 shows on Friday. There's a 5 and then a 9. And then we also have the Cave, which operates generally Wednesday through Saturday, Thursday through Saturday, then occasional Wednesday, Sunday, Monday, whatever. Depends on what we get. But yeah, there's any given time, there's probably 70 to 75 shows a month on average on the property. So there's usually something for everybody. You know, but check the calendar, please. Check, you know, go and check. I don't want, you know, Dave Alvin played on Friday, which was sold out in advance, but that was, you know, it was a $50 ticket.
Yeah.
So there was, you know, I don't want somebody walking up getting sticker shock, you know, so we do provide free shows. Most of our local shows are about $10. So if it's a special event, it'll go up. And there's always something going on.
And there's always family around, whether it's behind the bar or behind the scenes or on the stage.
we have a running joke in our text group. There's always a hall here, so we call it HOD, like who's the hall on duty. So sometimes if like Jeff, James, and I, we're the three of us are generally one of the three of us is generally the hall on duty. But every once in a while, we have to get Dad to come out of the house and go, okay, man, you got to be HOD tonight. Who's all on duty?
I love it. Well,
and that's the way it should be. Yeah.
And that's what makes the place so special. So thank you for working so hard.
Well, now I'm responsible. Like I can't quit.
I love it. Thank you, Jay. And thanks for spending the time today.
Great, thanks.
Jay is certainly carrying on the legacy of his parents, making sure that the Sportsmen's Tavern feels like you're home away from home. As promised, next up is Grace Lougen to talk about the experience from the stage and how the venue has evolved over the years. Grace, thanks so much for joining us today. I know that when Jay said that you were the artist that he picked to feature at the Sportsmen's, I mean, everybody in Buffalo knows Grosh. So I'm so glad that you decided to join us today. And I know you're also in the band Big Martha and you've played with duos. So you definitely know Sportsmen's as a performer.
Yes, for sure. I've been playing here a long time.
Do you remember the first time you played Sportsmen's or any early memories of first playing here?
Well, I actually played my 21st birthday here.
Really?
Yeah. I played a benefit here just this past Sunday. That was every year they do females fighting breast cancer benefit. Mm-hmm. And so that was the same one that I played when I was 21. So
no way.
Cool. Yeah, they've been doing it a long time. Yeah.
So how has the venue changed over the years or stayed the same?
It's changed a lot in all good ways. It's always been cool, but this is the one place that I play that I feel like they're always putting money back in, and always trying to make it better. They're expanding. They just expanded the building even more. But when I first started playing here, it was a small stage like on this side. There were booths. They just keep making things better, making the stage better, the sound better, the place bigger.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see what they've done over the years.
So you've seen the evolution.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Of Sportsmen's. Yeah. What makes the place special for performers?
This is my favorite place to play, hands down. I can always trust that it's going to sound good for me on stage, and I know people here can come to the show and it'll sound good, so it's just, that means a lot because sound is kind of everything, as a performer. You need to be able to trust that. And the sound people here, Tony and Mark, I usually work with, and they're so passionate about what they do, and it's really fun. It feels like they're just a part of the band, We're that close now. We feel part of the family when we play here. This is our home, when we play at Sportsmen's.
And I'm glad you mentioned the sound because there is definitely an attention to quality and sound here. And, even from the performers that they choose to actually how the shows sound. And you experience that.
Yeah, for sure. Sound is just a big thing, and it can get overlooked sometimes. Or just, assume that it'll be good enough, but here they are very particular, and it shows. It's great.
Which is cool because it's also such a homey feel. So to have good sound, you don't find that in a lot of places.
Exactly, yeah.
How about the feeling change once you step off the stage and take in a show from either the downstairs or the balcony? So when you're here and you're not performing, what's the difference with that?
Well, I have a favorite spot. I love to sit in the middle up on the top so I can see what everybody's doing.
Oh, nice.
I love it. But yeah, every night of the week, if I have a night off, I love to sneak over here and say hi to everybody and see a show. It's great. Like I said before, the sound out here too is good. Yeah. So, this is definitely one of my favorite places to come see a show too.
So you play with your band, you play with other bands, but you've also worked behind the scenes for some bigger artists and inside venues. So if you had to name one or two places in your travels you found to be like the Sportsmen's, is there anything that comes to mind?
Like just venues that are kind of similar?
Yeah.
Those are hard to find, when you travel.
Yeah.
Places like this, definitely. And I realized that too when I would be planning tours for the band or something. This is special. You look at a lot of venues and they just don't take care of people as well, or, you can't communicate as well as this place. So this is definitely a special thing. Booking my own tours and stuff, DIY kind of things, has made that obvious that there's not many venues like this.
What makes a venue like the Sportsmen such an important place for artists to perform, especially up-and-coming musicians or independent musicians?
I mean, it's been a huge part of my development as a musician, starting to come here when I was young, seeing so many good bands, local musicians, getting to meet people. That's a huge part of, just growing, is just meeting people and meeting your heroes, local heroes. And then there's so much support for developing artists here. They love to, if you're not ready to have your own show, they'll pair you with somebody else. There's just so much talent here in Buffalo, and they're just huge supporters of music in general and just want to get everybody going. So,
how would you explain the Buffalo music scene to somebody outside the area?
It's definitely a community. I've traveled a lot, and if I'm out of town on a Tuesday or something, there's no music a lot of times. There's very select cities that I would go that I could be like, oh, there's music tonight on an off day. If it's not a Friday or Saturday, it's pretty hard to find. So that alone is cool about Buffalo. This is one of, I believe, the few cities, honestly, that you can still make a living as a musician just playing full time. So it's really, really special how this city holds music and art, as important as it does.
Well, we look forward to seeing more shows with you and any of your projects here at Sportsmen's and around the city in Buffalo. So thanks for checking in with us and hanging out with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Finally, with more than 70 shows a month playing at the Sportsmen's Tavern, they had a ton of fans willing to talk about the vibe. Enter superfan Rachel Swensen, who touts the Sportsmen's Tavern as a must-visit venue to enjoy live music. Rachel, thanks for taking time to talk to us today. I know normally when you're in this space, there's music and noise and fun. So how long have you been coming to Sportsmen's?
I think since I was 21, probably. So about 7 years.
And how many shows do you think, how often are you here? How many shows do you think you've seen?
At the least a few, like once a week, probably.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You were
quite
regular.
often. Oh, yeah. I'm a regular. I've been a regular for quite a while.
Do you remember your first show here?
I think it was Twang Gang, which is the owner Dwayne Hall's like project somewhat, and they play every Tuesday, still do, and they have like musical guests from all over and mostly Buffalo come up and play with them.
What was the vibe of the show? What is the genre?
It's kind of in the name twang, right? So it's like, a lot of folk, a lot of country, a lot of sometimes rock, sometimes it depends on who else is up on stage too. It switches up a lot, but it's always upbeat, always fun, always good music.
Yeah. I feel like that's representative of the Sportsmen's.
I feel like Twang Gang is a perfect representative of Sportsmen's. It is exactly what you would expect out of a place like this. It's a lot of regulars, a lot of new people, and just fun and good music, always.
Always. Now, what about the venue keeps you coming back?
I always tell people this, you will always find a good show here. Any day of the week, it doesn't matter if it's a Monday or a Saturday, you're going to find a quality band here. And the people. I mean, the regulars, the staff, just everybody, the musicians, everyone that is here, it's like a family.
Yeah.
And you just feel it when you walk in. It's warm, it's welcoming. And like I said, it's everyone here that plays here is talented.
You can tell by all the pictures on the walls, there's such a variety of musicians.
Exactly.
And then, regulars and family members all on the wall together.
Yeah, for years.
So Sportsmen's has developed a reputation of being such a music destination. But also a way to celebrate it. Do you feel that vibe when you're here? Do you feel a celebration vibe?
Always. It's always upbeat, no matter what. Well, there are shows where it's, people are more intense and very, very much paying attention to the shows. But no matter what, it's a celebration of the music and a celebration of, I think, Buffalo.
Yeah.
And what it has, what the music scene has to offer here.
How would you describe the music scene in Buffalo to maybe somebody outside the area that is coming here for a show or wants to stick around and explore?
There is more talent in this city that you would ever expect. You could go to any venue and see any local band and just be absolutely blown away. I think, honestly, I don't want to say surprising, but it's just, we have so much talent here. It's special.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a very special place. And how do you think Sportsmen's fits into that? Because there are so many great venues, there's so many great artists.
I think it's first of all the perfect sized venue. It's big enough to have like a really fun big show, but it doesn't feel like you're in the back and you can't see anything and you can't hear anything. Like you're gonna have a great spot and a great time no matter where you are in this building. And like I said, everyone that plays here is just, you're gonna get a good quality band. It's gonna be just talent, showcasing our talent in the best way possible.
Do you have a moment that you remember being like, this is my place?
It definitely was at a Twang Gang for sure.
Yeah.
And it was, I think after I started to come here for a bit, people started to recognize me, buying me a beer here and there. And it felt like I felt very comfortable here. I felt like, oh yeah, this is a place I would come to comfortably by myself any day of the week.
Yeah. So how do you think Sportsmen's helps to show what a great place Buffalo is to see music?
Well, the hospitality here is unmatched. Everyone here treats you like family when you walk in, but it's just the feeling that you get when you're here. Like I said, it's a big venue, but it doesn't feel that big. So when you're here, it feels like more of a close-knit, intimate, more venue than any of the other place. So it just feels homier.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for spending time with us, and I can't wait to see you here at another show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That wraps up this episode of Here Here. Be sure to check out more episodes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Buffalo is a unique music destination, and we uncover it all on Here Here. This program is produced by Buffalo Toronto Public Media for Visit Buffalo Niagara. I'm Bentley. Thanks for listening.